All right, we are live. I'm excited about this one, guys. This is a podcast I've been looking forward to for a little bit. I've been tracking and following this guy. We've been friends for going on almost 2.5 years now, and his trajectory in terms of what he's doing in the real estate space is amazing. The drive he has, the motivation he has, the vertical integration you guys are going to learn about today. It's really freaking cool, and you get a glimpse inside of a true operator, a true executioner and entrepreneur. And so I'm really excited to have Eddie Marin here today. Eddie, thank you for coming and hanging out for an hour.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on, dude. Honestly.
Yeah, man. I want to dive into, we got so much here. I mean, dude, you own multiple businesses. You run an insane meetup that I've been to here in Phoenix, Arizona, that the doors are always filled with people. You have name tags, you have food, it's insane. And I know you guys are crushing there, and we'll dive into that a little bit, but I want to kind of go backwards prior to you in real estate and understand kind of, under the hood. I think you grew up here in Phoenix, Scottsdale. Is that correct?
Born and raised. Yeah.
Born and raised. And was your family entrepreneurs in real estate or anything, or what's the upbringing like, childhood like for you?
Yeah. So I was born in the auto world, in the auto industry world,
okay.
Right? And so parents always owned their own companies. When they first got here, because they were from Mexico, they ended up working, I believe, for a couple people before they're like, hey, it's time to take this to the next level and just do our own thing, right? So they've had multiple dealerships growing up. My entire family's in the auto world. And so I kind of always was bred around to be like bred in the area of entrepreneurship of like, hey, like you can either work for someone or you can go work on your own stuff, right? And it really did attract me at the fact that, look, I've done the 9-to-5s, I've done the W-2s. There's nothing wrong with those by any means at all. Like I actually made, just to give you comparison, when I started my dealership back in 2015 to 2017, it was a roller coaster starting a brand new store from scratch, right? But I ended up moving to the life insurance world, and then I came back to the dealership world as a finance manager at another established new car store or a used car store. Yeah. And I ended up making more money in 1 year than I did in the 2 years that I had my own store. Right. And so that's what I tell people. It's like, look, you don't have to own a business. You don't have to be an entrepreneur. You can be an intrapreneur. Yeah. From taking a business, like their average car was $2,300 profit, and I brought it up to $6,700 per unit on average. And that just happens, obviously skills and relationships and understanding the fact that, how do we maximize what we already have here? How do we make more money with the work or the business or the clientele that we currently have today? And then you can start improving more, right? But if you're like, the best way I can put it is like, yes, don't like Brooke, one of my business partners in my real estate business. She always talks about how I like to squeeze every drop of the lemon. It works in some instances and works and it doesn't in the others, right? Because there's obviously like, hey, move it or groove it, move it or lose it, right? Yeah. And so I learned very quickly in the auto world is that if I'm selling 10 units a month and my current marketing, me doing everything the same, and I'm only making $2,300, that's $23,000 a month, how do I get it to the point of same sales and increase revenue? And so I switched a couple things, switched marketing, the inventory, and then we went from, if we sold 10 cars at 67, I mean, shoot, you're talking 67,000 in profit that month compared to 23,000 in profit. Now you have a whole team with the same amount of energy, effort, and everything that you're already doing. Right. And now you can increase your team to do more, right? Because now you have a higher profit per deal. And so, that's where I first started really kind of learning the business world, and from a different lens, from owning a store to running a store, and then bringing it over to the real estate world.
Where do you think, that's super interesting, the ping pong aspect of that? Where do you think, was it your childhood? Was it your parents? Was it the owning of the dealership that got you your sales and closing skills? Was it the insurance, life insurance? Where do you think you learned that ability? Because you came into, that finance manager role. And it sounds like, I mean, you hit the ground running with that and you were making pretty decent money. What in that, time frame got you your sales skills? Because it just didn't happen overnight. So what was that?
That's a good question. I've always been an advocate on you coming to me versus me going to you. And what I mean about that is one reason why just to answer your question, this is going to be circling it back to your question here. So in between the dealership and then when I went back into the dealership world, I did life insurance in between, right? Yeah. Life insurance, very valuable, very powerful tool that a lot of people can, make a lot. I have friends that sold their agency for $4, $5, $7 million. And, I got like people my age and stuff of that nature, like it's younger than me as well. And it's a very lucrative business as well. Right. So, but I went in there and to me it was tangible. And so a lot of times I had to call Landon up being, hey, Landon, dude, I got a policy. And back then you couldn't sell over Zoom before you have to show up to appointments. Right. So I would call and I'd be like, Landon, hey, dude, you requested some information. I'm going to be in your area. Let's schedule a time for me to stop by and let's talk about the options that, we can, you have for you and your family, right? What are your goals?
Right.
Half the time you'd say yes. And then 25% or another half of that actually show up. And so I was driving around. I put on 22,000 miles on my Beamer back in the day when I had one. And just driving around half the time. It was one of the most, what do you call it? Sales heavy pitch that I've ever done versus me just saying, posting up a clear message. This is my inventory or this is my product. Do you want it? And if you do, I'm going to get a message on my phone from Landon saying, hey, dude, I saw your vehicle, or I saw at the time was cars. So we're going to talk cars for just a second. Hey, I like your car. Does it have X, X, and X? Can I come look at it? Sure. Absolutely. And so when I learned that nature of, I don't need to convince you to come buy this car. I'm going to give you and present the inventory or present the product so crystal clear that I want, if you come and present interest, then I'll present you all that information. And the fastest growth and learning lesson I ever had was that the less I sold, the more I sold. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so that was the biggest shift. And a lot of that, it took me, because I honestly, I hate pressure sales. I don't like being pressured into things, and I don't like pressuring people. Some people just need a little push and guidance, but I don't like the whole, like, oh, come on, you want this, dude. Trust me, you want this. Come on, you look so good in it. Come on now. Right. Instead, I ask what you're looking for, what kind of guided, it's almost like a guide, right? Like, what are you looking for? What are you looking to achieve? Why do you even want this? Is this a desire? Is this a want? Is this a need? What are you looking to do with it? So forth, so forth, so forth, right? I get to know you a little bit, and then I'll even be willing to push you away if it wasn't a good fit for what you're looking for, right?
Well, I think that ties in so much to your character as a servant in many ways, because you're guiding people, and many times, especially in the real estate space, many times their largest financial decision of their lives. And
right.
A car is one thing. It's still a massive decision in many cases, but there's so many gurus out there pushing that pressure, pushing those sales pitches and these perfect scripts and frameworks to pressure people. There's a gentleman here locally that does that at scale. And it's tough, man. I totally agree with you in alignment with the aspect of serving and guiding people in many ways. And that's so much of our business is based upon relationship more so than is the pressure tactics of a sale in all of our businesses. But because that transfers so much over to, and we'll get into this here, is like the multiple real estate businesses that you own. Like one thing that, I own a real estate business that we do A to Z when it comes to acquisitions through dispositions. So when you're in the car space, you're a finance manager there. That led up to, I think what it was, 2021 is when you joined a mentorship called Sub 2. Was that what at that moment of your life, what was the the cataclysmic event for you that made you shift over to maybe real estate's the focus, or what led you away from that $6,700 a month that you were, or $67,000 a month that you were generating as a finance manager? What kind of pushed you that direction?
Good question. So 2 years I had the dealership. I gave it to my dad. It didn't do well, right? We tried something new that ended up soaking. More or less, my dad's vision was to do a buy here, pay here situation, and so he basically ran everything. I was in charge of sales and marketing for the dealership, right? That was my role in the partnership that we had. But long story short, we're getting the sales, but the inventory started to kind of choke out a little bit. And I started realizing that. So I went to him and I'm like, hey, what exactly was going on? Long story short, buy here, pay here. It's you buy a car, you fix it up, you sell it almost like on seller financing. And then you get a down payment to replenish some of that cash. Well, you do it little by little by little. You don't do it all at once. Well, he did like 10 cars in 1 month. And what ended up happening is that like our cash got soaked up very quickly. So then it started to become a lot difficult. And towards the end, I told my dad, I'm like, hey, you can have the dealership at this point. I don't want anything to do with this. It's a slimy business if, for the most part, because I care too much. I have too big of a heart where if a car goes down or needs repairs after we sell the vehicle, their implied warranty covers you for 15 day, 500 miles. But on 501 or day, 16, like, you're out, right? Something happens, like you're out. Well, I had too much of a heart to say like, hey, like, well, this is my product. I sold you this, so I'm going to go fix it, right? Well, dealerships go under because of that mentality, right? And so long story short, I gave it to my dad. I said, hey, you can go ahead and take it and take care of it and make sure that everything else gets paid, so forth, so forth. I go to insurance. I go to the dealership world. After going to the dealership world, I was there for 3 years, right? The first year, I was actually in the insurance world when I heard about real estate wholesaling, right? And Cody Barton at the time was, he tried life insurance and then he took off. So I called him and I'm like, hey, dude, what are you up to nowadays? And he goes, well, I'm going back to the real estate wholesale space. And I'm like, what is that? Don't you need a lot of money to do that? And that's the first time I was truly introduced to real estate wholesaling, was when Cody, before he even met Pace, which is doing it, systems, operations. That's basically what he was doing. And he was still getting deals here and there. And that's when I kind of learned from him. And he's the one that really sparked that interest in me. And so I tried it out for the next year while I was selling life insurance with my brother-in-law. And well, we didn't have direction. We didn't have a coach. We didn't have anything. We just kind of were throwing money at the wall and hoping it sticks. Right. And this is back in 2019 when the market was literally blowing up because of like COVID, pre-COVID and everything. And what would happen is we kept on dumping a bunch of money into it. We were buying this, event thing that ended up being the biggest waste of our money that basically set us back, which was $6,000. And then realizing that, well, you got life insurance and you got real estate wholesaling, you're trying to catch two rabbits at the exact same time. It ain't going to work. So money got soaked up again quickly, ran out of active cash flow, and then eventually, cash flow in general. And then it got to the point where I told my brother-in-law, I'm like, hey, dude, like I need cash, and I don't even have money to buy leads for my life insurance business anymore. And so at this point, I need to figure something out. So then I got a phone call and was just like, hey, there's a finance position open in this spot. So long story short, I go there. I didn't have money to pay my rent. I was living with my ex at the time, and she definitely didn't have the money for it. And so I was freaking out because rent's due. I protect my credit to the day. Back in the day, even today, I protect my credit over everything, right? Over a lot of things. And so rent was being due. I didn't have the money to pay rent. I was already at my 3rd day, and after 3 days are considered late on your rent. And I had about maybe $9 to my name. Right. And so I go to this dealership. The owner goes, hey, are you sure? Like, you remember how to do all this stuff? And I'm like, trust me, we'll be okay. The first day of work, I come, I end up selling like a big pack. Like I sell a truck and a mobile toy hauler all in one. I end up making $3,600 on my first day. Right. And basically payday was the next day. And then I ended up, paying my rent and all that. Right. Wow. God's blessing. Right. It's crazy. Yeah. It's crazy. And that's when I got the maybe it's time to replenish myself. Let's pull back a little bit. Let's just pull back a little bit, right? Well, long story short, I pulled back. I go full time at this dealership, and like I was working from like 9 to 2 o'clock. And I told the owner, I'm like, hey, I'm gonna go ahead and work with you for the first half of the day, and then the second half, I'm gonna work on my real estate business. You have to be okay with that, or else I'm not gonna be able to proceed long term. And he goes, that's fine. Really cool dude, named Mike. And here, this was like the biggest thing was year one, 7 months in, right? I ended up making, I think, $78,000 working half a day, right? For 7 months of the year, because I joined it back in March or April. I forgot which month exactly. The next year, I decided just to take more full time my dealership so I can pay off the $50,000 of debt that I was in from prior and all this extra stuff. And so I just went all in up until like, I focused on the real estate business, but I put it on pause because I was making so much. I was making $10,000-$15,000 a month at this point with the dealership that I was like, okay, time to, let's pull back. Let me focus on this, make as much money here, and then come back. Right. Well, year two that I was there, I was like, great, this is amazing. But then I started to feel this like sense of the entrepreneur spirit, right? Well, I told the dealership owner, I'm like, hey, we need to start talking about expansion here, and I'll go open up the other store and let's continue doing this. Well, it was always yeah, we're looking into it, but there's never any fire, never any he was very excited the fact that he was making 3 times the amount ever since I joined, right? And so there's definitely vacations started to happen, and I'm starting, and I don't have any issues with that because they have a family. But at the same time, I'm sitting here, I'm like, I have to wait for you. And if you're not willing to run as fast as I am when I'm trying to blow up your business right now, I'm going to leave. I already know that, right? Well, that's exactly what ended up happening. So long story short, year 2, I start to have these feelings and comparison of all my buddies are in the insurance world. They're still doing very well. People in the real estate business are doing well. And I'm over here working a dealership, W2, there's nothing wrong with it. But I started comparing myself, knowing that not that I was envious of what they were doing. It was the fact that I knew that I could do it, if not better. Right. And so, and I was like, I'm being held right here because I can't, no matter how many times I try to, overcome this or tell this person that I'm ready to get build and build and build, they're still not listening. Well, about the beginning of the 3rd year, I started to get really kind of I felt it, here's the best way I explain it. It's God puts visions and talents inside of you, right? And at first, when God gives you that idea or that thought, he's like, hey, I'm just talking to you nicely right now. Hey, let's, here's an idea. Let's go pursue it. And then when you're like, oh, I'm too complacent, I'm too comfortable, I'm in a good spot right now, he'll say, okay, no worries. I'm going to let you, feel yourself for a little bit. Right. And then all of a sudden, when it's time again, he's going to come back and he's going to be like, hey, are you ready to sit down and listen? And then most of the time I was just like, yeah, you know what? I feel that vision. I feel the idea. I know I'm supposed to be doing more. I know this season that you gave me right now brought me back up to speed with everything. I paid off the debt, all this stuff. I'm enjoying myself, blah, blah, blah. And then I push him off even more. And this time he comes back and he goes, hey, I'm going to give you another warning. This time I'm actually you're going to feel it. You heard me. But now you're going to feel it because you're not going to have a choice. And so then that was halfway through the 2nd year because I was there for 3 years. I end up sitting there and I'm starting to feel a little bit more. I can feel it now. Now you're feeling it, right? You feel. And it wasn't until COVID got released, when everybody was going through the COVID crisis and stuff. That's when I felt it, when he was just like, all right, you're not listening to me. You're not paying attention to me. I asked you nicely. Now I'm going to sit you and put you in a box until you can really feel it. Right. So now it's I'm yelling at you, and all I felt was walls coming in on me. I felt I had all the money that I could possibly need to live off of. I was single, making $150,000 a year, working part-time. Right. And my own schedule, everything, right? I could do whatever I want at any given time at this point, right? And it finally hit me, and it was the beginning of the end of the year, beginning of January. I called Tyler, one of my best friends. We lived together at the time, and I basically was just like, dude, I'm freaking out, man. I don't know. Like, I don't have depression or anxiety or anything like that. I think depression, anxiety are just seasons, and depending on how you understand, if you understand your body, you know, anxiousness means that you know you're supposed to be doing something. You're living in the future in a way, right? Depression means you're living in the past. You're, you know, and my dad's clinically depressed, so I'm fully like, you know, I've been around it my pretty good long amount of time, but I had my first and biggest ever panic attack.
Hmm.
And
What was this at was this at work?
It was a whole week. The panic attack lasted a whole week. And it was the nastiest feeling I've ever had. It was the most stuck, dull, numb feeling I've ever had in my entire life. It literally felt like I was put in a box.
Interesting.
And by the man upstairs in a way. And I know people are going to be like, well, why would he do that? Something like that, whatever. And I'm like, because when you have purpose and you have vision and you keep choosing comfort and you just keep, you know, comfortness of yourself, and you don't move past that, he has no other choice.
Yep.
Right. Yep. And it's either he does that or you sit there and you continue not living your purpose of life. Right. And so I felt that, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is like, I felt numb. I called Tyler and I'm like, dude, like, I don't know what the hell to do. You know, I don't want to go back into wholesaling because I hated cold calling. I didn't know about VAs or any of that.
Sure.
And he had just, you know, he had a lot of cash, and I had a lot of credit with a lot of good W-2 income. So I'm like, let's put ourselves together and let's figure out how we can really, you know, let's buy a bunch of rentals, use and stack up our cash flow to then pay for, you know, because the whole asset, rich dad, poor dad, buy assets to pay for your lifestyle kind of thing. And Tyler was just like, all right, dude, let's do it. I don't like, you know, because he actually cared. He more or less did it for me, if that makes sense. Right.
Yeah.
He was just like, hey, let's just do it. You know, we'll figure it out. Let's just do it. Let's get into real estate. Okay, great.
Was that your first? Yeah. That was your true first partnership, would you say?
I would say my first partnership was with my dad.
True.
My second partnership, the dealership. So I learned a lot from there. Second thing is my brother-in-law. That was more or less like a JV partnership / business partner, but it was very much so like two guys just trying to run a million miles an hour, hopefully in the right direction, but then with no guidance, no support, no nothing. It was just strictly just, you know, us. And then Tyler was officially like another partner, a different kind of partner, from actually starting up a brand, a business, and so forth from there. But yeah.
Got it. Mm-hmm. Okay. What would you say, you know, having been through various levels of partnerships with Tyler, your dad, your brother, what would you say your biggest lesson is when it comes to partnerships so that they're successful partnerships? More so
communication. Communication between each other. And what does that mean is that, okay, cool, roles, responsibility, communicate exactly, clarity, number one. But number two is vision, right? And number two is talk about, what do you want? Landon, if you and I are like about to go into partnership where you're going to start working for me or I start working for you, the first question we have to ask ourselves is that, hey, what do you want? Where do you envision yourself? Like, what is it? What kind of lifestyle do you want? Right? Because a business partnership, number one, is you're getting married except in business, right?
Right.
And when you go into that partnership, you have to know what their long-term vision is and what kind of lifestyle they want to, you know, pursue and so forth. Like Tyler's a homebody. He likes being behind his computer and on the charts, watching sports and, you know, spending time with his family and stuff. And I'm in, hey, we're going to every event. We're going to every conference. We're going to network. We're going to build. We're going to start building, where I don't like to be behind a computer all day.
Yeah.
right? I like
Yeah.
to be networking. I like to be talking. I like to be helping people. I like to be solving problems always. And Tyler, it's not that he doesn't want that, is that he does it at his own pace, right? And so, and if that's something that him and I were to have a conversation about early on, I'm not saying things would have changed by any means, but maybe the way we approach certain things would have absolutely changed. So
Certainly.
if you don't have that sense of understanding what your partner wants long term and what they envision their family or their life to look like 3-5 years from now, Tyler was telling me from the very beginning, I don't want to wholesale the rest of my life. I don't want to wholesale. I don't want to do this. Right. So every time there was a hiccup, what was the first thing? Hey, dude, let's go figure out something else out. Right. Because it was never part of his plan. He only did it for me, essentially. Right.
Yeah, that's very critical. I mean, that's so sobering to hear. And I hope people listen and actually hear that, because establishing those upfront contracts and understanding what your partner's vision is incredibly important. It's so easy on the surface to, well, he's your roommate, so let's become business partners because we live together, so we can do this together. Or you're my wife, or you're my husband, or we're best friends, and it doesn't work like that. Sometimes it can, but there's so much of that. But I think also too, like, the differences between your personalities in terms of your ability to network and want to go in terms of, extroverted activities versus his, it also is probably how it worked so well. And so, there's many of that aspects in many of my business partnerships too, where those visions were laid out because of failed partnerships. I had an early failed partnership that was because of misstepped expectations. And it led to understanding what I wanted and what I didn't want in a partner, vice versa. And it's so critical. And so as a serial entrepreneur, you're now shifting your focus into real estate. You have this panic attack. I guess let me back up. You have this panic attack because you're destined for a greater purpose and to serve what is deep inside you, to provide for society. What was the next step for you? Because you didn't want to wholesale, but you got Tyler to commit. So you guys are going to commit to buying rental properties. What does that next step look like? Like, how much longer after that moment are you still at that dealership, or how long did that last?
So good question. And I know I was circling back to the answer. Why did I choose real estate or so forth? I'll answer that one. And then I go to the question you just asked. Because the same amount of effort goes into the car business. I said, I already have so much skill and knowledge and experience based off marketing and selling vehicles.
Just different
What's
product.
enough? Yeah, exactly. It's the exact same process.
Yeah.
Higher paying product, right? You get into the houses world, like you have a house, you can go sell it. You have a deal, you can go sell it. So I'm like, how can I take these skills and not completely restart? Like, hey, let me go learn coding, right? I didn't want to do that. So essentially I said, well, let's bring my skills and figure out how we can do it in a different industry. And real estate I've always wanted to get into real estate, but I didn't know how to get into real estate without any money. And so I thought you needed to be super rich. I thought you needed to be super wealthy to get into real estate. So that way, that's the only reason I never really pursued it until Cody told me about wholesaling to begin with. And that's when I'm like, okay, so at the end of the day, wholesaling, you're not a real estate investor at the end of the day. If you're a wholesaler and you call yourself a real estate investor, you're not a real estate investor. You are a sales and marketing individual. That's it, right? You're sales and marketing. If you're wholesaling and that's the only thing, you've never bought a house, you never invested into real estate, you are not an investor yet. You are a wholesaler, and that's okay. But it is very important to define people, because I always wondered, like, how do people in the real estate space get into it? Well, yes, to buy real estate, you need money, but to get into wholesaling, you don't. And that's the part where I didn't realize the disconnect was.
Got it.
So once I had that conversation with Tyler, him and I, for the next 3 months, we bought bigger pockets. We were just underwriting we got the rental calculator. We got everything that bigger pockets basically had to offer. Him and I would stay up from like 6 p.m. all the way up to like 1 a.m. in the morning, just trying to learn how to underwrite, figure out which markets we want to get into. How do we buy? We had a bunch of wholesalers that are sending us a lot of deals because we didn't want to wholesale. So we're like, we'll just pay your fee. And then eventually got to the point where 3 months in, we still haven't taken any action. Because we're looking, Arizona didn't make sense because you can't cash flow heavy. So we're looking at cash flow heavy states not necessarily appreciation, but more cash flow. And that's when I turn around, we're sitting, he was on the couch and I was sitting up front connecting the computer or controlling the computer. And he goes, and I turn around and he's just sitting on the couch, just passed out. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, this isn't working, right? We're doing all this underwriting. We're trying to research. We're coming up with all these ideas, but really it's just not working. And so Tyler goes, dude, we need like a coach. We need someone that can, like a guide. We need someone that we can ask questions to help us, people that are actually doing the business, that have experience in what it is that we're already trying to, and let's shortcut it. What I love about Tyler is that he's the shortcut guy, right? He is the, I'd rather not waste my time and energy. I'd rather pay you a fee to teach me how to do it quickly. And I'm the guy that I'm like, I'm going to go figure it out.
Yeah.
Pride, ego. I'm going to, show people, right? Really like showing myself. Right. Well, that's when Tyler was like, hey, let's look at joining Sub 2. And I was just like, bro, that's $8,300. Like, you want to put up that money? Because I don't want to put up $8,300 because we'll figure it out. And he goes, I'm just tired of sitting up all night, not taking action because we feel or we believe we need to be doing, or it's just, we didn't work out. Right. So I said, okay. So we get on a phone call with Sub 2, and Cody and Pace. That's when they first became partnerships as well. And that's when we reached out to Cody, and Cody goes, that's Pace's thing. But, if you're looking for an active coach, I think it'd be a great beneficial for you guys to, join it. Well, we get on the first phone call. I get off the call, or we all get off the call with Tyler, the salesperson, and I look at Tyler. I'm like, are we doing this? And he goes, you're still questioning whether we're doing this? I'm like, okay. And so he puts up his credit card and he basically funds the beginning of it. And I'm like, but we don't want to do wholesaling at all, but we'll join Sub 2 because Sub 2 is about how to acquire deals subject to, without having to go get qualified through loans and all these banks and stuff. You can just buy them subject to. And so we're like, let's do it. This is going to get us to our goal at a shortcut because someone else is buying these houses subject to, and now they're going to go show us how to do it as well. Right. And so that was back in 2021 before there's 1,200 students when I joined. And that was 3 months into 2021, joined in March, right? March 27th, 2021 or 21. And I stayed at the dealership for another year, another year. Okay. Cause now we were prepping to leave. I was prepping to basically exit. And then it took me about a month in between to say, hey, or 2 months after we joined, that Tyler and I were like, we need to find these deals. And not a lot of people, not a lot of agents liked the idea of subject twos back then because they didn't need to.
Yeah.
Right. The market was so hot that you put up anything and it will sell $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 over asking. And so it was very hard for people to actually, get subject to deals under contract and pitch it to sellers and agents. And it was, a lot of it was just strictly cash. So then Tyler and I were sitting there and we're like, dude, we may have to go back into wholesaling. And that's when we heard about VAs. And that's the only reason why we got back into wholesaling, is because I wasn't going to do the cold calling anymore. We were going to go and hire a VA, which we hired Start Virtual. And that's where a VA started to come through. And that's how we got started. It took us 7 months to get our first deal in Columbus, Ohio. Second deal came 3 months after in Columbus, Ohio. In the first 12 months, I think we total net to us was like $15,000 when we spent $38,000 to get the ball rolling.
Right. Yeah, man, the grit that you two had, even your self-discovery in terms of the experience you have with the dealerships, the ups and downs, the internal battles that you went through, the level of grit that you have in forcing what you've always been destined for. And you had almost like a shepherd with Tyler to help push it across, flip the credit card down, join a community that you and I that we met through. And there's been so many amazing people that you and I have both met, but just the level of grit that you had 7 months for your first deal. It was 5 months for mine. And I still own that property. I didn't even know how to wholesale it at that point. I just knew I wanted to buy something with low and no money down and a 3% interest rate. But, so the level of grit that you had, and so you dip back into, so you hire VAs because you get back into wholesaling to recoup some of these upfront costs. You have a VA doing it because you didn't want to cold call. Where does it go from there in terms of your guys' growth? Because originally the growth was you don't want to wholesale, you want to own real estate. So when did you first acquire your first true rental property in your portfolio outside of like a wholesaler?
It was a year later. So it took us about a whole year. Like the first 12 months, I was still at the dealership. And then Tyler comes up to me and he goes, bro, like we had a goal to get you out of the dealership by March and go full in on this. He goes, because it was hard for me to run the business and do some acquisitions and dispositions when I was at the dealership, because I always have customers that would flock in here and there. And then Tyler would have to pick up the slack or help, cover that and on that side. And so eventually got to the point where we had, I think, like 8 contracts all at once. And that was in February, right, of 2022. And that was the first time we were like, oh my gosh, like this is like, we have $180,000. I think it was $167,000 in escrow, basically, or projected according to what we thought. Right. And Tyler's like, dude, it's time. We said you're going to be done by end of March, first quarter. And starting the second quarter, like you're going to be full time. And so I put in my 2 weeks immediately. And before that, and I'll give people like, would I ever change anything? No, but I would prep better knowing what I know today. And long story short, I gave up $150,000 of cash flow that year because of my W-2. And I went and I quit because we had $167,000 in potential earnings, right? Without buyers, we just potentially earnings, right? Because we were looking for buyers. And long story short, I think only like 20,000 of that closed, right? And so now I'm like freaking out because I got $6,000 or $4,800 a month in bills. Gas prices just went up, and I just bought a Raptor. And now I'm paying $1,200 a month in just in gas, and I got my living expenses. Like my truck was costing me $2,200 a month, and I had just bought this the year before, right? My killer interest rate. I bought a 2020 Raptor in 2021, 19,000 miles on it, 3.24% interest rate loan. Payments are $980 a month, which is killer. You can't beat that anywhere right now. But at the time, I was making $150,000 on W-2. So it was easy to make that, right?
Right.
Well, quit. All that money goes away. It takes us, I'm not freaking out because I'm like, we have it handled. We're going to get it done, right? We're going to figure this out. No quitting this time. And
you don't have a choice. You don't have a choice. Your back's up against the wall. You had that panic attack. You committed. You've joined a community that cost you $8,300. You're figuring this thing out. You've hired VAs and all the things. You're going to figure this out. And it just goes to show your grit. And for anyone out there watching, what it takes to succeed. Like this story is so cool because it's so relatable for so many different people, that so many people at so many ways along your story, they would quit. Mm-hmm. They would give in. They would give up. They wouldn't commit to the $8,300 because of the $8,300. Now it's probably $12,000. I don't even know. Mm-hmm. But then, quitting the golden handcuff job of $150K a year, working till 2 p.m. to where, dude, you could have a 3:00 tee time every single day if you really wanted to.
I was playing golf every day, dude. Every day I was playing golf at 5:15 was my tee off, and we'd be done like at 8:30. So I'd get to the start by 9. That was every day for all summer, for the summer ball.
Yeah. Interesting. So it's, the level of grit, you wanted so much more. You commanded so much more of your life. And I mean, there's so much credit to the Lord for you in terms of that growth and that pushing toward those things. And so you have 20 grand close that month. What happens after that? I mean, that's a big month still. I mean, so what happens after that month for you guys? Because now you're all in on it. You're working full-time in the business. So now you're generating more leads. You're having more conversations. You're finding more buyers. What does the next 3 months look for you guys?
Straight marketing is all branding, honestly, because that's when we branding was everything when it came down to like I knew that if we had a good solid brand and, you know, reputable with that shows like, hey, these guys will show up for you, right? I knew that it would, you know, because look at Pace, right? Like you look at him and his brand credibility, everything. It got me thinking. I'm like, okay, building a brand, credibility, helping people, and then if we get really good at this, people will come to us no matter what. And so that's exactly what our brand started recognizing us for, is that these guys will call your leads and they will get them done for you, and then, you know, you'd partner with them on a JV. And so we tried doing the direct to seller marketing campaigns, pulling lists, skip tracing, texting them, calling them, cold calling them, getting them ready. Tyler was our acquisitions guy. I was the dispo guy. And like we were never as profitable as we were doing our JV partnerships, partnering with other people. And that's where we really gained our reputation and our branding. And ever since then, that's even up until this point today. Like it's 100% JV model. And the next 3 months up until that was just trial and error, learning that direct to seller wasn't really, it was part of our process because we were still we weren't stopping there. We're going to figure it out or find out how to figure it out there. Right. But then, you know, we hired more VAs. We hired a salesperson. And at one point we had 16 people on our team.
Wow. On both 16 people on both acquisitions and dispositions.
So about like, I think 5 total were salespeople, including myself, Tyler, our partner, our third partner that we were there for a little bit with. And then we had like 11 VAs, 12 VAs or so, just cold calling, texting, lead generation, getting us all the leads we can possibly get, and so forth.
Wow. Mm-hmm. That's a lot to manage in a short period of time, right? You go all in, and now how long did it take you to get to that 16 employees?
By the end of the year, 2022.
Okay. So yeah,
June,
quickly,
actually June of 2022. June of 2022.
So 3 months later, after you quit your job, you now have 15 to 16 mouths to feed.
Yeah, actually by September. June was when we started that new partnership, and then 3 months later, we had a whole army of teammates at this point.
Wow.
Excuse me.
That's a lot of responsibility.
Super.
You know,
stressful.
And how did that? Yeah, I was going to say. So how did that, at that moment in your life, reeling off of what you've went through over the past 5 years with the dealerships, the life insurance, the dealership again, and now going fully commit mode? I know what the answer is, but what does that look like when you're sitting there in September? I assume you're not looking back. I'm sure you give yourself a pat on the back and respect yourself so much because of what you've went through to get to that and what you're building. But I guess when you're sitting there in September with the amount of people you have, the value you're providing, the amount of deals you're doing, at that moment, what was your vision right there? And that's going to lead me to my next question. What are you looking at? What are you sitting there on September? Is it just all pass forward? Let's scale, build, or where do you stand in that moment?
Yeah, really my goal was to stabilize the business enough to where it's predictable on, you know, deal flow and building a team where we can help elevate someone else to be in charge of that team.
Got it.
And bring in a manager and a leader within, and then help that business continue to grow and scale within itself. And that's really where my vision was being held at, right? And that's where I can only think of like, hey, all we need to do is hire one person, train them good enough to where they understand what the concept is, and then let them run with it, you know, entrepreneur wise, right? And give them all the resources possible for them to be successful at any given point. Well, a lot harder said than done, right?
Yeah.
And so training, empowering, being there for your team, it's another skill within, because you have to stop thinking about yourself and where you want to see what your vision 100% looks like. And you have to start asking your team, what do you want? What are you looking to achieve? What do you want out of this? Right? Because we always talk about like what the visionary wants for the company. Great. Well, if your team doesn't get what they want, they're not going to be motivated and excited to build something for you if they're not getting what they're wanting. Right. And you can't assume that they want the same thing as you. You can't assume that they're going to work the weekends as much as you. You can't assume that, you know, they're going to sacrifice, you know, every night to work till 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. And so if you don't have those conversations, which I did not, I will tell you that right now, I didn't have that with my partners. I didn't have that with my employees or my team members at the time. We never had that at all. We spoke about goals, but not what do you want your life to look like, right?
Interesting. Yeah, that goes back to, there's so much that goes back to what you discussed a second ago of communication with your partner, but it's also with your team members too, in terms of what they want. And the 2022 was such a formidable year for you in terms of your personal development and growth, that the questions that you're asking yourself of yourself and for your team and your partnerships and everything, dude, it 10x your total personal development in 2022. Seems like that was like where your emotional maturity just went on to the next level of responsibility of other people and the amount of volume you were doing. How long did you operate that at the scale that you did, Tyler, and you, to where you made the transition to exclusively focus not on A to B, which is acquisitions, but moreover, just solely dispositions? And that ties back into what you mentioned at the very start of this, which is you want people coming to you. It's no different in dispositions where, and I'll let you describe what dispo is to the viewers here, but that's going to be purely inbound for the most part, other than maybe some ads to bring people in. But what does that timeline look like for you and Tyler, that it goes to straight dispositions? What does that look like?
2023 happened, right? Obviously 2023 comes, and we were at this point in 2022, mid of 2022, we had started acquiring our properties. We started buying properties. Okay. Then we bought our first one. We sold it on a wrap, and we're like, hey, we don't have the brain capacity to buy them and maintain them. How do we build cash flow without sinking our money into the deal long term, and we can get our money out and still keep cash flow? There's got to be an option, right? So that's when I discovered wraparound mortgages. So we did our first one. We ended up making $7,000. So we bought it for $9,000, sold it for $60,000 3 months later. 0% seller financing, 12% or 8% is what we sold it for. So there's an 8% threshold there. We spent $1,000 down. They put $12,500 down. So we made $7,100 or $7,600 all said and done after the sale. The wrap was sold, and we were cash flowing $550 a month or $570 a month or so. And that's when we're like, right? So we were buying a bunch of deals there at the time. We had 5 of them active, and so we were going through that aspect of it. But it wasn't until early 2023 where we're like, dude, this is like, we either stop buying wraps and properties and rentals and start focusing on building the team, because the team was hitting that glass ceiling constantly enough that it wasn't until, Tyler and I started to have the conversation of like, hey, like, what do you want? Like, those conversations we should have had a long time ago. But, again, because we didn't, every time there was a problem, it was very much so, hey, I don't want to do wholesaling for the rest of my life, so let's start looking at a new option. Well, Tyler, I didn't have any other options because I didn't have money coming in, and Tyler had cash stacked in his account, right? But I didn't, because my W-2 is gone. This is the only thing that's feeding me. So I didn't have, oh, you know what? Let me just put it stop and figure out another thing, right? And I wasn't going to do that. So we had already built the brand and so forth, and so it wasn't even a thought of mine. It wasn't even an option. And so Tyler and I had that conversation back and forth. Tyler goes, hey, I see it, but I want to get into multifamily. I want to start doing other things, bigger, profitable, real estate transactions or so forth. And it wasn't until Tyler and I had that conversation. That's when I hired Brooke. Was it back in July of 2023 is when she came, because I told Tyler, and even up until that point, we were still acquisitions, dispositions. I told Tyler, I'm like, hey, we're going to bring someone new. We need someone to start. Actually, we had to let go a lot of, after we got rid of our third partner back in the day, we had to let go a lot of our team members, the VAs and stuff, because we just went full in on JVs, right? 100% on JV model. And so now it's just Tyler and I and one other assistant VA that was helping us do all the admin and operations aspect of it. We bring on Brooke. After bringing on Brooke, we were getting deals, but we weren't massively at a bigger scale getting a lot of deals. Like in 2023, I think we're probably doing maybe one on average a month that would close, right? But we were getting 3 to 5 under contract. But because that's when the market started to adjust and change, it was very touchy feely kind of thing. We didn't know how, like, it wasn't just because we didn't have a full operation going on. The market was changing and adapting. And so like we weren't hot, but our branding and everything was still building and growing. But we still bought and sold. We still had our wraps. We were getting cash flow on our wraps and stuff. And we fixed and flipped in 2023 as well. And now in we hire Brooke. She gets the hang of it. Starting 2024, Brooke, now we work together. It's Brooke and I in the dispos department. Tyler's acquisition still. And her and I just, she's cranking it. She's doing very good. 2024 is when it really started blasting the dispo side, where we started selling other people's deals versus just waiting for our own. And so the second we opened that channel up now for dispositions, all of a sudden we just started blasting. We were just absolutely just cranking it. In 2024, we closed 73 deals in 2024. And it wasn't until halfway through the year in April when Brooke and I sat down and had a conversation. And then you can just tell that Tyler is ready to do something else. Yeah. And so him and I had a conversation to say, hey, dude, like, we're focusing strictly on dispositions. You want to switch over? We're going to do 100% dispositions. Acquisitions clearly isn't. And he was just like, dude, I'm tired of being relied on certain areas, and I want to show up for you guys, but I also want to show up for my family. I want to show up for my fiance and all this stuff. And I want to do stuff that, is going to get me more excitement, right? Which he loved trading. And that's where he was doing before real estate. And it was very time consuming. It was very, real estate wholesaling is a lot at the end of the day. It can be a lot simple, but it's a lot. Very emotional too, because you look at these big deals and they go away overnight, cancels or whatever it is. But he eventually, him and I had a really heart-to-heart conversation, and he was just like, yeah, I think I want to go focus on, building out the other, my insurance business and my trading business, and we'll do deals here and there as we go. And so him and I'm like, and I sat him down, we're like, hey, my relationship with you is more important than it is my partnership with you. And so let's lay it all up front. And that's when he was just like, dude, like, I wish we would have had this conversation. And I told him, like, I wish we had this conversation like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, dude, because we could have saved a lot of time, money, energy, months and stuff of that. Like, instead of me pulling you along to what I'm trying to do, and then you doing it based because you don't want to let me down. And so versus just us having a conversation up front to say, hey, look, I don't like, I love you to death, right? And we're best friends, and so I would never be disappointed because you don't want to build something that is in alignment with my vision versus you want to build something else, which is totally cool, right? And he was just like, dude, yeah, absolutely. I wish we would have had this conversation a long time ago. And so even up until this day, we'll do deals here or deals here and there that he gets a lead or something, but he just no longer relied on. He's not on the day-to-day anymore. Then Brooke and I became business partners. She did so well, and I'm like, hey, be the operator, be the person that executes and handles and helps me build this actual organization when it comes to training people and the team and all this stuff. And let's do it. Let's run with it. And so that's when Brooke and I became partners in the real estate business.
Okay. 2024.
Yep.
Wow. What a journey, man. What a journey through. And so, I mean, but now, when we're getting toward the end of this podcast, and I want to make sure we capture a few more things here, but you build up this disposition business, and you're now, I think you're up to like 6 team members, and you're growing this, and you guys are crushing. What are you guys on track for 2025 in terms of volume this year? So
we had 16 before. It was when Tyler and I, now we have 6 total.
Yeah. 6 team members now just on dispositions.
6, so this year this is another pullback, right? So 2024, we crushed it with 73 deals closed, right? This year we went and hired, but when we went and hired, some more learning lessons along the way. Because again, I wasn't the one that was hiring and training everybody for the 16 people that we had on our team. I was just in charge of kind of leading the pack, right? But this time we hired, and we kind of, something I learned with Brooke really quickly was, I hired her and I said, "Hey, this is how I do my daily. This is what we do. Blah 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 blah." She took it and she implemented, but I never audited. I never sat there and like trained her audit. I mean, I trained her. We had a lot of trainings, but it was very much so like training, go implement it, and then call me when we get more deals, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't. It was very hands off trainer essentially that I was. She implemented based off experience, and that's how she gained a lot of her experience. And so now this year we started to hire again. But exactly what I did to her is what we did to the new people. So as we're doing that, not realizing, we came back and we're like, oh, we stopped. We had a slow early quarter because we basically gave all the new leads to all the new hires, but they're so brand new that they weren't going to close the same amount that if Brooke or I were on the phones. And so we had a huge pullback in learning that we were like, oh, shoot, we have to learn how to train. We have to learn how to manage and learn how to maintain an actual company when it comes to sales, because that's a whole different ball game. That's another skill within. Selling is one thing, but training and managing and doing all that is an entire new operation or skill sets.
Yeah.
And so this year right now, I believe, let me see how many. Last month we closed 8. And let's see if I have it from the top of mind here. I think we're close to like 64, which is less than what we did last year. But
it's a rubber band. You guys are gonna crush 26. It's November 3rd right now. We're heading into the holidays. 26 is gonna be crazy for you guys. When did you, because you have also, this works in conjunction, the vertical integration of what you've done with dispositions, because it's so intensive in terms of paperwork, is you developed and just built out your own TC, transaction coordination business, out of it, TC Deal Pros. Mm-hmm. When did that come along, and how is that working? Is that operating independently, or is that working in conjunction? What does that kind of look like?
So 2 separate businesses.
Got it.
It was when Tyler and I were partners. I went to Tyler and I'm like, hey, our most basic expense as a wholesaler is a TC, because you would cancel and then you have to pay the deposits because you have to pay for their time. You just have to. Yep. They got to be paid for something, right? And so I ended up going to Tyler. Actually suggested Perla. I've already worked with about 5 different TCs, and was like, hey, Perla is on her own and she's great, and she loves getting feedback and criticism, constructive criticism, and she implements too. She doesn't get offended based off of the work that was done. She knows how to separate it. So her and I had all 3 of us had a conversation. Tyler told me, we don't have time for a TC. We don't have time to build another TC business. You can do that, right? So long story short, go to Perla and I basically say, hey, like, you're already doing this. You become the operator there. We'll bring in the structure and the business aspect of like actually setting up the business, marketing, and then we'll bring more files, and we're going to get you to the point where now you're running and managing an entire TC team. And so she was just like, okay, well, let's do it. Let's launch it. And so we did that. The first 4 months of us doing it, we 4x the amount of business that she was doing. The year after that was with one other TC we hired. Now we have 3 TCs total. We have 2 virtual assistants, all W2. It's like a legit, like full out business kind of thing. And then we have Perla running the show. And so like we're obviously one of TC Deal Pros. Deal Pros is one of TC Deal Pros' biggest clients, but we also have other clients that utilize TC Deal Pros as their main TC because we get we pay out affiliate income. So every time you assign it to someone and the buyer pays for it, you are referring that buyer to us. So we will pay you an affiliate fee, right? And it's a lifetime. So every time they come back to us and they keep on buying, well, you keep on getting compensated for it, right? And so very separated businesses. We do work very close together, but very separated. Our own assets, our own resources, our own everything. Yeah. And whenever we get a file, we just transfer it over to TC Deal Pros, and then TC Deal Pros gets it done. And then, but that's essentially how it came down. And, I think we've done a little over 750 transactions in the last 2.5 years since we started. file wise with TC Deal Pros. Yeah.
That's wild, dude. It's wild the amount of volume that you guys have turned. And it's so, like you said, man, you touched on it in the middle of this podcast of your faith pushing you towards something greater. And that panic attack happened for you, not to you.
Right.
And led you to doing what you're doing. That's what's beautiful. And you're such a serial entrepreneur. You guys are going to crush 26. What does that look like for you from a scaling aspect as you've already vertically integrated in many ways from your disposition business, your TC business, you have an insane meetup. What does 26 look like for you as you scale your business?
We're looking to get to 10 reps before the end of 2026. So 10 reps. A lot of us are getting, like Brooks getting licensed as a realtor or real estate agent as well. And we're going to continue growing that licensed model, I guess you would say.
Okay.
And we're hoping to get 10 reps before the end of the year of 2026.
What's the benefit of that for you guys?
So we're nationwide. Because we're nationwide, we have our biggest markets is Texas, Arizona, Georgia, and Florida.
Yep.
And so we have we market about 40 deals on average every month that we get sent from other partners, the people that need buyers. So Dispo Buddy, you submit your file and your contract with us, and then we start marketing to our buyers if it's a deal that makes sense and we accept it, right? And then we have our buyer side. So capacity is very, very, very important when it comes to people. It doesn't matter. All the good deals, all the low-hanging fruit will sell very quickly. But if you don't have the team to go out and put it in front of the people, or in front of the buyers and investors, it's going to be very difficult to sell all 40 of them, right? Yeah. And so our goal is to increase our sales close ratio, that if you submit a deal to us, we have a 70% chance we're going to sign the deal for you, right? And so with more people, more bodies, a bigger scale company, bigger scale organization, we can easily hit those numbers. And by then, 40 deals will turn into 60, 70, 80 deals every single month that we're marketing.
It's crazy, man. That's crazy. Going from took you 7 months to get your first deal to 3 months later to doing 40 to 60 to talking about doing 80 deals a month. Mm-hmm. It's bananas, dude. It's bananas. I'm so impressed. I'm so grateful to have met you along the journey and everything you're doing. Where can people reach out to you and find you if they want to do a deal with you, but also reach out and follow your content in terms of what you're doing? So
Dispo, but if you need a buyer and you want us to see if we can find a buyer for you, it's dispobuddy.com, dispobuddy.com. And for me, for my social and everything, just go to Eddie G Marin. So EDDIEGMARIN Marin on Instagram. And that's basically another spot. Just send me a DM, send me a message. If I don't respond right away, I will get to it.
Yep.
And then if you're a buyer and looking for deals, go to termsforsale.com, termsforsale.com.
I love it, man. Thank you again for hanging out for an hour.
Absolutely, dude. Thank you for having me. This is awesome.
Cool. See you guys.
All right. Thank you so much.